How many vaginas did you bring with you?
3.
3 vaginas?
Yes.
Not including yours.
Oh, correct. Yes.
So 4.
In
There are
addition
4
to mine.
vaginas.
Yeah.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 vaginas in the house.
Yes.
And a baby doll.
A baby doll and 2 pelvises. External to bodies.
External to
Total pelvises are 5.
Because 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4.
4.
And Aram, our
Cinco.
videographer, has a pelvis as well.
He did. Good work. Thanks for bringing it.
Thanks to Sana Skin Studio for supporting the No Podcast. Sana is a skin studio that is shifting the relationship with your skin and your products through goal-driven facials, real guidance, and clean skincare. Stay tuned for our promo code so you can receive $25 off of your first facial at Sana Skin Studio. Welcome to the No Podcast with me, Nikki Spo.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the No Podcast with me, Nikki Spolstra. I'm so happy that you are here on this journey with me as we come home to find ourselves and we come to learn our deepest sense of inner knowing. If you are not subscribed to the show already, go ahead and click subscribe because those count as automatic downloads and I want your money. I mean downloads, I mean money. You know what I mean. So anyway, today I am so excited to host someone who has become my friend, somebody I have worked with for a long time, Dr. Kat Vigo. Dr. Kat Vigo is the founder of Painless Pregnancy, which provides physical therapy to women throughout every stage of their motherhood journeys. Dr. Kat earned a bachelor's and doctorate of physical therapy degrees from the University of Florida, Go Gators, and has worked in the hospital setting for the first decade of her career, specializing in everything from orthopedic, neurological, and complex medical cases. I hosted Dr. Kat a few years ago, and we got to hear about her somewhat traumatic birthing story, which inspired her passion for the obstetric population. And here's the thing, so many women are suffering from difficult or traumatic birth and labor experiences everywhere, and physically and emotionally. And there's not always enough being done to support new mothers. But Kat is here to change that until every mother heals. And she has taken every available course on the topic of pregnant and postpartum physical therapy. And Dr. Kat has trained with the American Physical Therapy Association, Herman & Wallace, Pelvic Guru, Pelvic Pain Institute, and the Institute for Birth Healing. She has a shit ton of credentials here, guys. My intention for this chat with Dr. Kat Vigo is for it to be fun and educational. We are creating a safe space for you to learn about your motherly body, understand the changes and consequences of pregnancy at a deeper level, and have some solid and practical tools to keep in mind. Get ready because we talk about all of the things. We talk about bellies, vaginas, sex, pee, and poop. Yeah, nothing is off the table. Your body is here to serve you. We live our best lives when we reside in a body that is strong, capable, pain-free, and continent. And with that, let's get started with Dr. Kat Vigo.
Woo!
Woo, woo, woo,
Beautiful. Thank you.
5 vaginas in the house.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I want to know, Dr. Kat, can pregnancy really be painless?
Yeah.
Like your business is called Painless Pregnancy. And so
Yep.
like when I'm thinking about what I'm going to ask you, I'm like, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, it's wild. You are so right that the concept for us that pregnancy could be painless feels not only foreign, but it feels wrong. You're like, I don't know. Like those pregnancy and pain seems to go together. And now to be clear, I have no stake in the claim that delivery can be painless. That is a whole nother animal.
No.
But yeah, to say that our female bodies are capable of growing an entire baby throughout those 40 weeks of pregnancy without experiencing pain, dysfunction, like you can't walk, you can't roll, or incontinence, like you're peeing your pants, pooping your pants, farting when you don't want to.
Yeah.
That is actually totally
embarrassing,
reasonable to be able to do that.
Cringe.
Yeah. And so to me, so I guess to back up a little bit, when I took my first pregnancy course, my oldest son, who's now 12 and a half,
Cray.
he was 18 months. And so I had...
Oh, stop. You already had your baby.
Yeah. Already had my baby.
He's already almost 2. He was 1.5.
He was 1.5. And so I went to that course and really didn't have much expectation. And when I left it, I was floored by how much we could do as physical therapists to support a pregnant body. So as a doctor of physical therapy who had already been in the musculoskeletal field for, 5-6 years before I took my first pregnancy course, even I hadn't connected that a pregnant body deserves to have all of these lovely tools that we offer every single day to any other body while she's pregnant.
I think a lot of it is that you're from having 3 pregnancies of my own and just going through it. I remember always feeling like, oh, don't do that, you're pregnant. That's the narrative, right? It's you can't do anything. You can't eat anything. There's so many things you can't do.
Yep.
So it feels like you have to be in this hibernation period. And I'm sure a lot of it is, right? You're taking time to rest and grow a human being. That's fine. But I feel like there's a narrative that's changing a little bit, right? Of we see how important it is for women to work out when they're carrying and all of these things. But it's there's a lot of it that is oh, don't do that, you're pregnant, or consult your doctor. And then a lot of it is consult your doctor. And then there's really there's not enough studies that are done around what to do when you're pregnant or what you can't do. The reason why they say don't do it is because there aren't enough studies that show that it can be done.
Yeah, we just
or what
don't know.
Can be done, right? We don't have the information.
Yep. Yeah, we don't experiment on pregnant women and we don't experiment on babies. That's off the table. We all agree on that for many obvious reasons.
Sure.
But to just do retrospective studies and look back and say, okay, let's categorize these pregnant women and say, okay, these women exercise consistently and these women did more of a hibernation period and didn't move. And then you can look back and collect data. I think it's such a simple way to serve our motherhood and to have more confidence when we do give recommendations.
Yeah, I personally I don't like being pregnant. Mm-hmm. I would have all the kids in the world if I didn't have to be pregnant again, right? I love babies. I love being a mom. And that's coming from someone that I did not want to have children, right? So now that I have 3 of them, didn't want kids. Now she's got 3. Yeah. I'm so happy to be a mom, but I truly, Dr. Kat, I don't like being pregnant. It's uncomfortable for me.
Okay.
I don't like it. I feel big. I feel like I can't roll, like you said.
Yeah.
I can't roll over. The peeing at night, it drives me mad.
Yeah.
Mad. In addition to the back pain that I would have and my hips, we've worked together long enough that my hips are all kinds of jacked up from here to Sunday. And my hips get even worse during pregnancy. And it's what are the solutions? What information is out there? How many people know that there's a way to alleviate these discomforts?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's such a good point. What I would say for a pregnant body is we should have the same expectations that our boy Aram here has. You can be fit and healthy and do what you have control over to maintain that wellness. You might still stub your toe. You might still fall off a ladder. You might still eat something that upsets your stomach. That's just life. Right?
Life.
So
normal life
there's
shit.
Category of pain and other dysfunctions or suboptimal situations in your body we're cool with. We're okay, nobody expects to be perfection and feel amazing all the live long day times 100 years, right? So there's variability just in the norm.
Yeah.
Aside from that, the female body is actually designed to carry a baby to term.
Yeah.
There are consistent, reliable bony changes. There are consistent, reliable muscular changes. Our organs change. Our brains change. Mm-hmm. These things have never come into my consciousness when I was growing my babies. Mm-hmm. My amazing body knew how and when to do them.
Yeah.
The pain and dysfunction comes when there's a rock in your shoe and you don't know it until you run a mile.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good comparison.
That's all it is. So like you said, with your hips, you have some pelvic alignment issues where, it's what we would say, we as physical therapists, we look for symmetry. Symmetry of movement and symmetry of your bones. When I place my hands on your hips, I should have my hands relatively in the same place, right to left. If you have some underlying twist in the system, you can really do a lot with that and never know.
Yeah, no, totally.
You can dance, you can exercise, you can climb a mountain. You could probably do a lot. Where it changes is when you load the system.
Right.
So you could be fine to do all those activities, dance, climb, run. But if I put a 10-pound backpack on you and you go and do the exact same activity, those dysfunctions will start to rear their head, right?
Totally.
It's like your house.
Makes sense.
Your house is solid and amazing.
Don't get me started on my house.
Week in and week out, year in and year out, it keeps the rain out. It keeps the weather on the outside. But if there's a mother effing hurricane that rips through, hey, even if it's a category 1 or 2, you'll probably still be fine. But if it's a category 4 or 5,
maybe
if you're
not.
talking about, yes, you're going to be like, oh, what are my windows like? What is my flooring like? What's my roof? Where are the holes? Can I patch them? So that's when you have to start to shift your mindset and say, I better beef this sucker up.
Yeah.
Because a category 5 is coming.
Oh my gosh, the baby is a category 5.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And I know that because I'm a South Florida native, according to your categories.
That's what's up. Okay, so wait, I have a question about something that you said is that our bodies are made to do these things, right? As women. Where do you stand on the administration of Pitocin?
Oh, during delivery.
And inducing delivery,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a great question. So again, like I
because
said,
our bodies are made to do this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so delivery as well. Yep. So specifically what I was referring to is our bodies are made to grow that baby.
Yeah.
So that means all the changes that occur where our ribs come apart, our pelvis thickens and widens, ab muscles thin and lengthen, all those things, they're meant to happen.
Right.
And they should happen to where there's no pain and there's no problems. Delivery, I believe, is in that same category in as much as our animalistic nature kicks in and the changes that occur from muscles and bones to hormones to everything. Again, it doesn't consult us at all. It happens automatically in the background. So yes, we are created to grow babies and deliver them without any intervention. Now, I say this being completely calm and happy because I don't catch babies. I'm never in that delivery room.
Yeah.
So as someone who's been in the birth world for 15 years, for sure, I can understand where people are coming at from both parties, right? So women who ask for zero intervention.
Sure.
I'm going to do this naturally. I'm going to go within myself. And please be here if I have an emergency.
Yeah.
Which thinking about emergencies while you're facing delivery is like watching plane crashes and you've never flown before.
Totally.
How often do planes just take off and land?
Right.
And there's no problem.
Right.
That really is what delivery should be all about. They should take off and they should land.
Right.
We live in a risk-aversive birth world, right? At least in the US, that's what I'm most familiar with.
Yep.
And so here, we are not okay with putting a mother or a baby's life at risk.
Why do you say that using your air quotes?
So the air
At
quotes
risk.
come in because that concept is not fully agreed upon, I guess I would say, in the birth world. So like, for example, a midwife spoke to my team last week. She shared about the history of breech birth becoming an issue. Do you know it was only, I want to say she said 2011 that it started to become a massive agreed upon thing that we don't deliver vaginally for a breech birth. Super recent. And then people were looking back after we collected more data of like C-section for breech birth, vaginal birth is only for head down. After we started doing that, they went back to the original research that created that rule, so to speak, and we started collecting information for the current situation. Only vaginal for this, only C-section for breech. And there's less and less support for the idea that a breech birth, when you're teasing out all other problems, no high blood pressure, all these things are not a component, just the baby is head down or the baby is feet first, that there's really no reason to say that breech should be only C-section.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just a risk, right? Breech is a risk. Blood pressure is a risk. How many deliveries this woman has already had is a risk. And so how to manage that falls in this entire medical decision-making tree, and people can be on one end of that spectrum or the other.
Right. Have you seen The Business of Being Born?
I haven't.
Okay.
I need to. You've told me that like
see
7 times. And
you have to see it. It's so good. So
yeah.
basically the documentary, which is, I believe it was produced by Ricky Lake, the talk show host, the former talk show host, basically goes into the thesis that hospitals are ultimately a business, right? And so they need to turn tables, right? Or in this case, turn beds over, right? And so once you go into labor, you have X amount of time. Once you go to the hospital and you are admitted, for your birthing process. You have X amount of hours to make it happen, right? And if that clock starts ticking and it's inconvenient for the hospital system, and this is, again, this is what the documentary covers. This is not my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying what I've learned about that is that they will be like, oh, you're not dilating. Oh, your birthing process is taking too long. Oh, whatever. And so now we need to induce to speed things along, right? And then your body is actually not ready. So you're here forcing a baby through your cervix, right? It goes through your cervix, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. See,
well, your cervix should open.
Where it's supposed to open, right? So let's say you're not dilating and this is supposed to induce labor, but your body's forcing this baby down. You're not dilating. And now what happens? Baby's heart rate goes up. Mom is not doing so well. Now we have a circumstance for an emergency C-section that might not have necessarily been an emergency scenario if we let the woman's body play it out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a foolproof system, because obviously there are emergencies, and when you're in the moment, it is very scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is very scary, and you have a bunch of people telling you have to do this or else.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And so for me, I wound up, Dr. Kat, rejecting Pitocin. Like, I was not dilating, and I wound up rejecting Pitocin.
Your body did. Like, you were given Pitocin.
I was like, I'm not taking Pitocin.
I decided you weren't going to receive it.
I decided I was not going to receive Pitocin.
Okay.
And I remember the language around that was very much like, well, if you don't receive this, this could lead to an emergency C-section. And I was like, receiving the Pitocin could also lead to an emergency C-section.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not a doctor. I'm not confusing my instincts with your doctorate degree. And I'm not saying yours. I'm talking about like society at large. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to bet on my instincts for a little bit longer. And that was for me.
Yeah.
And I wound up working out.
Absolutely.
I wound up getting an epidural. I had an epidural that did not work. It was a very painful delivery. Yeah. But in my world at the time, it happened a little bit more on my terms.
Great. Yeah.
And so I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. I know that you have your own really traumatic birthing experience. So if you're comfortable with opening up about that a little bit, I feel like for those who haven't listened to our original interview, it would be good to give them some context about how you even got started in this industry.
Oh, sure.
And why.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So originally I started because I had a stressful traumatic delivery with my son, who's 12 and a half. I was otherwise healthy as a 27-year-old. I had some spotting in the first trimester, and that no longer is a precaution. But back then they said, don't exercise. So didn't exercise nearly my entire pregnancy. And when it came time to deliver, it was 39 weeks. And the doctor just said, we have to induce, he's measuring big. I kind of knew at the time, I really knew at the time that I didn't need to do that, but you're dangling. Really? I really did. If I look back and now.
Like your intuition?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I even remember going for a walk that night and being, Mom, I'm on the phone with her. The doctor said I'm going to go in tomorrow to get induced. And she was like, oh, Kat, I don't think you need to do that. Like, can you, and her saying that like stirred that up even more in me to be like, no, I don't need to do it. But I just pushed it down and I was like, no, the doctor said I could get induced tomorrow. I just wanted to have my baby.
No,
I was done.
You're fucking tired.
Yeah. So I didn't have the strength to either speak up for myself and to prolong my pregnancy anymore. I was just like, check.
You were like,
I'm out.
I'm out.
So it was intervention after intervention, all the things. And I ended up only 24 hours really, which is not out of the norm for the first pregnancy, for the first delivery. But I did end up with a 4th degree tear. So for those of you who don't know.
She's bringing out the vagina.
This is not my 27-year-old vagina plastered and recreated.
My 27-year-old vagina.
Simply a model of the 4th degree tear. And so for those who can't see, I have a healthy intact perineum. And so this is healthy and intact. So that's the bottom of the vagina, of the vaginal opening. And this is the rectum. And so there's all this
I'm sure he sees enough. Sorry. I'm sure he sees enough.
Yeah,
my gosh.
Yeah,
sorry.
You don't need one of these.
No,
we have faith in you.
I cannot.
No need for silicone. So
I'm dying.
The bottom of the vaginal opening has some space between it and the rectal opening.
Okay,
it's a piece of tissue. It's actually the insertion of most of our pelvic floor muscles.
I thought you were going to say piece of cake. I was like.
It is not. No. Whoa. What happened was, when that kid came out and he was sunny side up.
I can't even see it. I don't want to see it.
She's a little dirty.
I need to she's dirty.
I apologize. No, actually, yeah.
I need to give her. I need to give her a good
cleaning.
Give her a bath.
Yes. So you actually tear from the base of your vaginal opening through your rectal muscle.
I can't fucking do it.
And 4th degree, ladies, includes the rectal mucosa, which we shouldn't even need to further digress into that term. So
and imagine if I feel I've had the 3 children, right? And I'm like, oh, I want to throw up listening to this. Imagine going through it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like horrific.
Yep.
Horrific.
You know what I remember? When the nurses would change shift in my postpartum, every single time, Nikki, and this probably happened 2 or 3 times, the new nurse would come into my current nurse and they would debrief in front of me and open up my chart and say, okay, this is day 2 postpartum woman with a 4th degree tear. They would both go, ugh.
Oh no.
And I was like, guys, I know the state is sad. Thank you. Like, please I don't want to relive it. So yeah, it was generally understood that it was an unfortunate outcome for me.
Do I look horrified? Because I've had so much Botox that sometimes you can't see my facial expressions.
You were frozen in time.
Well,
I interpreted that as scared, not post-Botox.
Not toxed up.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I can raise my eyebrows, but I feel like my eyebrows should be all the way back here right now.
I see it. Yeah.
Okay. My God.
Yeah, so that was my outcome.
Take your torn vagina over there.
Yeah, I'll put her back.
Put her away.
Put her away. Turn her around.
I need a drink.
It was a rough recovery. I mean, there was no help. There was no recommendations. It was just like, here's some laxatives. Don't poop for a couple days. That was the extent of it.
Wait, here are some laxatives. Don't poop?
Yeah, because a stool softener.
Okay.
Stool softener. Yep. So you want to make sure your stools are very soft when you have to pass them through something that's just been stitched up. Like it was.
I cannot.
The best part about this is you don't choose this. So it's not like, oh, you're the type of mom who can handle accidentally pooping your pants. Like, no, I was randomly selected to endure this situation.
This makes me sad. And it is sad.
Yeah.
And it's sad that this happens and that moms aren't armed with enough information or access to be able to treat it afterwards.
Right.
Right? And and we see this all the time. You see, I'm very passionate about postpartum mental health, right? Because I had a really hard time postpartum emotionally, psychologically after the birth of my first son specifically. I think it's a huge life change, and you go to your 6-week checkup. And I think that doctors are for the most part doing their best. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
your OB-GYNs. Yeah. I have a great one. I love mine. But at the end of the day, there's only so much that can be done.
Yeah.
And if you are experiencing postpartum anxiety or depression, you're kind of like in this cloud that you don't even know you're in.
Absolutely.
You're like, this is just how it is. Like this is craziness. Like this is hard. This is scary. I'm not sleeping. Like I remember thinking, and this could be controversial, I'm not sure. I remember thinking like, it must feel like, forgive me in advance for saying it, but to be a prisoner of fucking war, like torture. This is to put me in a dark room, like I'm cold, I'm hot and cold, my boobs are engorged, I'm like feeding, I'm like a service provider.
Round the clock.
I'm like hot compress, cold compress on my boobs. You're healing your vagina if you've had a vaginal delivery. You're healing your C-section if you've had a cesarean delivery. It's just, you're on 0 sleep.
Yeah.
It's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was really, really hard. And so I remember feeling like there wasn't enough, even though there is awareness, there wasn't enough that was done or that I could even do for myself afterwards. And I think that it's something very similar, Dr. Kat, that's happening even for physical postpartum recovery. We see moms up and at it, and that's great, Yeah. Like, more power to you. I was personally, after my C-section, I was walking, and I was doing the things, and I was taking care of myself, and I had the opportunity to work with you one-on-one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After my second pregnancy too, no?
Yeah, after the second, yeah.
What treatments are available to postpartum mothers when they are experiencing something physical like that, a physical trauma like that? Because when we have shoulder surgery or you have knee surgery, I'm going to physical therapy to recover. How are we healing our bodies, our female organs, our genitalia? How? What are we doing?
All right, guys, let's take a quick break so I can thank our sponsor, Sana Skin Studio, with their OG location in Wynwood and their additional locations in Fort Lauderdale and Coconut Grove. Okay, so the best way I can describe Sana is that it feels like coming home.
Unlike traditional facials, Sana's facials are rooted in education, and I love this so much. Every experience I have had at Sana has been a chance for me to learn more about my skin and its needs. I love that the facials are effective while also being accessible enough to be a monthly ritual rather than a yearly splurge. This is why the Sana membership is so great. I'm honored to be able to provide our audience with a promo code. Use the code THENOGLOW for $25 off of your first facial when booking at sanaskinstudio.com and additional incentives if you book a membership. I have absolutely loved my skin healing journey with Sana Skin Studio. How are we healing our bodies, our female organs, our genitalia? How? What are we doing?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, first, I would almost speak to the extent to which you are in that fog. And so you created such a perfect picture where you're like being woken up randomly. You're having to do hard tasks like feed a newborn. There's stress and anxiety, unknown, confusion, hot, cold. All the like literally everything that a human body would need to just feel successful is taken from you.
Yeah.
We're concierge. We go to people's homes for therapy. When I tell you going into a postpartum home, and this is not, I know we're concierge. This is if you live in a multi-million-dollar mansion, and this is true if you live in a one-bedroom apartment, and we serve all of these people. There is dispersed confusion. It's almost like you can see clearly that the woman or the mom is truly the head of the household. It doesn't matter if she has support and, hired help, or if it's just her and her husband. She is the keeper of the household. Because when she is down and out, the household is a disaster.
Yeah.
And so many times when I've walked in, okay, maybe there's dad there, there's mom that I'm treating, and a grandma or a grandpa. And one specific home I remember, this adorable mom. I mean, these people were older as far as new parents go, maybe in their late 30s, highly educated, had wealth, had knowledge. They were drowning. And this one specifically, the baby had to stay in the NICU, so it was just mom, dad, and grandpa at home. And when I walked in, I just knew Nikki. I was like, okay, mom, have you had anything to eat or drink this morning? She's like, no, as soon as I woke up, I started pumping. Okay, grandpa, you're gonna go get mom a snack. Something hot and ideally a soup. And dad, you're going to go get her a full glass of water with a straw because she's pumping and she can't,
it's so funny. That, the straw is so clutch.
And all I had to do was go in and delegate.
Yeah.
And say, this needs to happen. People don't know because I think the woman is usually the one who's delegating.
Right. And she sees, or she's like especially if she's a planner, she can see, like she has like a bird's eye view for the most part, right?
She sees what the needs are in the home. And she's like, okay, this has to happen. This has to happen. Everybody go. So once I went in there and started setting up the needs that mom had, things started to flow. But just that idea that she is not capable of speaking up for herself. And I don't really feel like we're in a state of mind. And when you understand the hormone shifts, it will literally blow your brain out.
It's scientific. It's not like just...
It's not a personality thing.
No.
It's not she's a diva. It's not she feels sorry for herself. There are hormonal, physiological reasons why she cannot be expected to share what her needs are, even to the extent that I need to tell you until you go and do it, right?
Yeah.
Not like, hey, I'm thirsty. Oh, yeah, I'll get it. No. Go get me a glass of water, bring it here with a straw, and don't stop filling up my water for 3 months.
Totally.
She can't do that. So we need to go in and we really need to speak up for her once we've identified her needs and make sure there's execution to where she receives that care. That's the first thing that needs to happen.
I'm like getting emotional listening to this because I remember how I remember the cloud that was, and it's almost like nobody's fault because people don't know what they don't know. It's not the father's fault. It's not the grandparents' fault. It's like, it's almost like everybody's first time doing this. So it's like, you don't know what you don't know until you figure it the fuck out, or until somebody tells you.
Yeah.
That's why conversations like this are so important.
Absolutely.
Because like dads need to know.
Yeah.
Dads need to know. Moms need to know that like before they have the baby, somebody needs to talk to the dad. Somebody needs to talk to the dad. Somebody needs to talk to the grandpa. Somebody needs to talk to whoever's in the home caring for you.
Yes.
I was so lucky to have a baby nurse that, first of all, I was lucky to have a baby nurse, right? Full stop in and of itself.
Yeah.
I had one really bad baby nurse that drove me crazy. Whatever. I then came to have another baby nurse, a night nurse, who was essentially like a stand-in mom for me. Like she showed me what it was really like to be cared for during my postpartum months. Like she let me cry to her. She was helpful when I had mastitis twice. You know, she was like truly, truly there for me. And that's, you know, every family system is going to look different. But sometimes all it takes is having somebody like you to come in and be like, oh, okay. Because you said it. You can see it very clearly from the outside.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so
And set
true.
these families up for success.
Yeah.
Or more success.
Right. Absolutely. Just maximize the situation.
And so it winds up being not just, so I think the direction that we were starting to go in on that train of thought is like, it's the physical part of it is almost like it gets put to the back burner, right? Because I'm talking about the physical, like what's happening with your abdomen and vagina, right? Yep. Physical, she needs food and water. Okay, mom needs food and water. Yes. Okay, great. Now, psychologically, what's going on with her? Now, we're just like, what vagina? Like, we don't even think about it. It's uncomfortable to think about, to be honest. Like, nobody wants to talk about it. It's kind of embarrassing.
Absolutely.
Like, how about the weird shame and embarrassment that women have around their own genitalia and their own bodies, and like the things that like we're in a rush to snap back and like be available to our partners. And there's like so many things going through a woman's mind that the last thing I personally is thinking about like is how am I going to heal my body that just delivered a baby?
Right. Totally. I mean, it's really fascinating that you say, what vagina? Like you really do withdraw from it, which we
like
can
disassociate.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason we do that, right? There's good to that in some way.
Survival.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So like if you're going to go get your tooth drilled, are you like, oh, let me think about what my mouth feels like right now. And let me wait, which tooth is it? Let me touch it with my tongue. And let me just like be in that tooth. Hell no. Like if you're really good, you're thinking about your last best vacation and you are concentrating on that as strongly as your brain will allow.
Mentally, I'm there.
Yes, you leave it. And I mean, like I had that experience during my delivery with my daughter. I left. And I almost remember Nikki
has left the building.
I actually didn't leave. I remember like going to this wall over here. I can see it in the hospital. And I was like, you need to go there because this is too much. That's a normal human capacity. Yeah. Like you don't lean into trauma. It's okay to escape. Yeah, I'm going to have this painful thing. Let me like hide in a corner real quick. The hard part is coming back.
Reintegrating.
And the hard part to coming back is coming back fully.
Yeah.
So yeah, reintegrating. Okay, fine. I can look at her. I can touch her. Okay, fine. I had sex with her. Okay, great. But like, can you love yourself again?
I didn't want to look at it.
Can you accept her for who she now is?
No. I mean, I can like I'm talking about as if I was back then, right? Like I'm like I'm like going back into like that version of me, and I'm like,
Oh, that's really helpful. Yeah, that's really helpful because that's a different phase of recovery,
right?
That's where you're like deny. Right. No, I'm a sexy bitch. I have a beautiful vagina. You're not it. And you like kicked it out. Yeah, that's okay. You can do that for a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
You got to go through that though.
I'm like, I expect you to see it and you to do the things. I'm like, but I'm not going to see it. Nope.
Right. Because you don't recognize her. You don't want to own it. That's not mine. How rude. I went through all that, brought a beautiful person into this world, and now we receive what we see as a punishment or like a downside.
Gosh, yeah.
It's not fair.
It's not.
No.
But we have hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's hope to be had.
So you go through that denial phase. It's a change. Everybody struggles with change. Then what also helps is that with time and sometimes with support, so from a pelvic health PT or any other component of support that you need, whether it's mental or whatever, you do start to heal. And so it doesn't look like that busted up one that's looking out the door right now. It looks more like what you recognize. And so that is the hope that we can give moms who are like, if today is their day that they're going through that, whether they're a day postpartum or 3 months postpartum while they're listening to this, not only can you mentally start to wrap your head around it, but physically it starts to get better, look better, really does. Feel better. Yeah.
But I remember also, Dr. Kat, when people were like, it gets better, I wanted to punch them in the face. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not helpful. Shut up! It's like when your kid's having a temper tantrum and some old guy's like, they'll be in college soon. You're like, Oh my gosh. All of a sudden, I got my toddler in the car and I buckled them. Isn't that great? Honey, you're going to be in college soon. You're just immediately stop crying.
Those are the best days.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to miss those days. I'm like, surely I'm going to miss this. My child just bit me. Like I just got bit by a fucking 2-year-old.
Yeah. And you're like, no, I wanted them to urinate all over my new pants. That was actually what I was hopeful for. So thank you. Goals being met.
But it's true. Like when you tell a postpartum mom, it gets better.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's not helpful. Right.
Fuck you.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah, wait, I know what I want to ask you. I want to know, like, is there a correct way for those mothers who are having vaginal deliveries? Mm-hmm. Is there a correct way to push? Mm-hmm. Like, is there a training that can be done to be like, this is how I can set my body up for success?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I love that question. So to give a quick example that you'll love because you love talking about poop, it is very similar to having
I am like a toddler, by the way.
Are you?
I mean, my kids are in a state, well, not toddlers, a 6-year-old. My 6-year-old does not shut the fuck up about poop.
Yeah.
They're like in the poop stage.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is like, you're a child, Nikki. I appreciate that. But let's go.
Yeah, boys do that for a couple more decades.
Is it?
So you know how sometimes when you need to have a bowel movement, you are sprinting to the toilet because it is at the back door and it's coming and you better be in a good location.
You gotta go, right.
Sometimes when you have to have a bowel movement, you kind of got to work for it. Like you're like, oh, I know I have to poop. It's been a day or two. You got to drink some stuff. You got to do a little circle dance. You got to sit on the toilet for a while. Maybe you're massaging your belly. Like you have to work for this poop to come out. It's really the same with babies.
Yeah.
So some of our moms will come back from delivery and be like, oh my gosh, 3 pushes and she was out.
Yeah.
Some of them will say, I reached down and I was like, that was
my
head.
friend. My friend, that happened to my friend.
Really?
She was like, oh, something's not right. She had her husband look under the blanket. He's like, oh, baby's here. Like,
oh my gosh.
I'm like, you didn't feel that.
Right? Isn't that
like,
wild?
What?
So wild. I'm so impressed by women who have babies like that. My sister, both of my sisters-in-law were like that. And one of my nephews was born in a car parked at a gas station. No. Yeah.
And luckily, like after the year 2000.
Yes.
Right.
And that was my brother who was a firefighter paramedic. So he was like at least somewhat prepared. He had caught other babies before. Most men would have just died in the driver's seat and been like, this is my last day on earth because my wife is delivering a baby in the car. So for women who, like you had touched on before, maybe the baby's just not ready. Maybe the baby's just not low enough. That is a situation where you might need to engage muscles and you might need to actually push. Or encourage that descent of the baby. Let's put it this way. My Mimi, my grandma, who turned 99 2 days ago, when she delivered, right?
Yeah.
When she delivered my mom, or say my uncle, first baby, they used to put women in twilight back then.
Hey?
They didn't even participate in their deliveries. This was their attempt at like addressing the pain that women experience during delivery.
What do you mean put them in twilight?
So that is a form of anesthesia.
What is, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So I might not have the exact details of what drugs they used back then, but the way it was explained to me, it's like when you have a minor procedure and you don't really want to be, you don't need like to be intubated and put out,
right.
But you don't also want to be there. You go under twilight. You have these minor procedures with twilight, it's called. So it's like you're drug induced into some kind of altered state where you're not present. You don't experience it.
That's crazy.
So yeah, our grandparents,
that seems crazy to me.
That whole generation, I don't know how long they did this, but plenty of women just woke up with a baby. I say that to say this. Our bodies will also reflexively push a baby out with due time.
Wow.
Yeah. So some women have no interruption of that automatic system and their babies come out. Other women have interruption of that normal system, whether it's the bones don't move well. You want to see the bones move and the baby come out?
Yeah. Let's see that.
So
is that like an actual pelvis size? Like,
this is a little small.
I was like, I don't think my pelvis is that small.
My brother-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon, and he's like, why do you have an adolescent pelvis? I was like, what? That was the first time I'm like, oh, that's not true to size. I mean, I don't know. You attach muscles to it.
Wait, I want to hold the baby.
You want to hold the baby? Yeah. Okay, so this baby.
I took the baby by the head.
Yes, we got a baby. So the baby needs to go into the pelvis. And so you see how this.
Wait, do you need the baby?
Yeah, so if you want to hold her looking at a hip, so head down, and you want this head to be looking at a hip. So see how the baby's head fits into the pelvic inlet there beautifully, right? And then this shape
Beautifully.
here,
You do it.
this shape here, actually we want her looking at the tailbone and we want the base of the skull to come out first. And now the shape changes here and that's how the baby comes out. Okay? So.
Like I've done this
Yeah.
and I'm still horrified.
Yeah. So.
I obviously have things to work through.
There's always time.
Always time.
If we keep digging, we keep finding stuff.
That's true.
So this pelvic inlet widens when we open the pelvic bones like that. You see how it widens?
Yes.
And if we tip the sacrum back. So
And
all
that
of these
happens?
bones.
And that just happens.
Yeah, so it does. It moves like this. But we can also move our legs and our hips in certain ways to maximize this pelvic inlet. So these bones open up. Now there's more space. Look how tight that was. Now the baby just slides right in.
Just slides right in.
Right? So now the baby's in the pelvis. And this again goes to like, do I need to push? You know, is this naturally going to happen or is this not naturally going to happen? So then the next phase is the sit bones need to come apart. Mm-hmm. Whoa, tailbone comes away. All of your pelvic floor muscles attach to those bones. So they lengthen 8 times their normal length, something like that. And then the baby can come out here. So when we're crowning, the baby's, hopefully, it is true that it is the most smooth delivery for the baby to come out head first and for the occiput to come out first. So ideally, this is going to come here. If you see this already, pushing is typically not a problem.
Right.
If women have to push to get the baby from maybe up here
to there,
through to this space,
that's going to be difficult.
That's where you're having a difficult poop and you got to really work it. Okay, so positioning, moving the legs, relaxing the pelvic floor digitally, that's usually your midwife or your doctor. All those things will help the baby to get to here. And then the best part is that the right way to push, should you need to push, is to think that you're taking a massive poop.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I have things to say about that because I feel like even that is like a very subjective process, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm.
Like how people poop is subjective. Are you pushing from your anus or are you pushing a baby through your actual vagina or are you pushing it through your core?
That's a great question.
I ask such good fucking questions.
It's amazing.
I'm a professional.
You're a question-making genius, basically. So yeah, it should really be a combination of all those things. Our abs and our pelvic floor co-contract. They're sisters. They should work together. So when you have a good poop or you're pushing a baby out, you should use your abdomen and you should think there's a bearing down function of our pelvic floor.
Yeah.
So it's not the Kegel, it's not the lifting, it's the bearing down. They actually the muscles are working as they get longer. That is the action that you need to produce. And that should be what you do when you poop.
And so these are things that people can actually do before they have babies.
Absolutely.
Like you can take classes. Yeah. People are like, take the classes and they put that on the back burner. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I took the classes, game changer.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Like I remember taking the class and it was at like a Pilates studio or something. There was a lady at a Pilates studio who I took class with and she like taught me how to push.
Okay,
right?
Great.
And I remember through my first labor, there was a moment where I was like, okay, this is the moment. And I remember my partner and I looked at each other and it was kind of like, you know what to do. I'm like, I know what to do. And I did it.
Yeah. Love it.
And it wasn't easy and it wasn't fun, but I was like, I know how to do this. I was like, okay, like I trained for this marathon. I trained for this moment.
Yes.
I know what to do. And I think that it can be hugely empowering for people, women, to do that. And I think it's really, really important for baby daddies to participate in that.
Uh-huh. They love it. So the men that are there when we do our delivery prep sessions, they are so appreciative if we involve them.
Yeah.
In a capacity that they feel good about.
Right,
They're
sure.
like, I'm her man. I can push here. You want me to squeeze this? I can squeeze this. I can look at her in the eye and tell her to breathe. I can just hold the sides of her face. Like that, having that conversation and empowering the partner to show up in a way that he feels good about is a game changer.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's an amazing moment for you to remember. The time where you looked in your partner's eyes and said, I'm ready. We trained. We're good. High five. That's a positive experience.
Yeah, totally.
That's empowering. You have power within you. It was brought out.
Yeah.
For the rest of our country, we're telling these women, this has been happening since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
You got this.
Right.
And there's no training.
Right.
And those moments that you have, that you just shared with me, those are taken from them because they think, I can do this.
Or they just put so much trust in a system that they know nothing about.
Sure. That's a great point. Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of us do that. Like we just follow whatever we're told to do blindly.
Yep.
You know? And this isn't, we're not talking about spirituality or faith where you can follow it without having proof.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
We're talking about science. There's tons of proof. There's lots of research to be done. I think that when women and men and parents just in general are more informed, they can make better decisions about their future and and their birth plans in general.
100%.
And the recovery, right?
Yeah.
So how soon after delivering a baby should a mom, start physical therapy?
Yeah. So ideally, we're going to see mom within 2 weeks of delivering.
Okay.
And that's
the physical, the PT.
Yes.
Okay.
The PT should assess the mom within that first
2
2
weeks. Because like, that's crazy to even hear because like your first postpartum checkup isn't even until 6 weeks.
Right. So it's interesting. Now ACOG.
What's ACOG?
Yep.
Tell us what it is.
American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They now recommend that postpartum women are seen within 2 weeks if they've had a C-section. And they get their C-section scar looked at. So we're making like micro baby steps towards this being better.
I can't remember.
But yeah, as of right now, there's this concept, right? Another like sort of floating idea that mom can't do anything. She's made of porcelain for 6 weeks. And then go run, go bike, and go have sex. Right? It's just like flip. The switch has been flipped. Oh, 6 weeks. Congrats. Welcome back to the world. Be normal. No. And if you're not, don't talk about it. So, you know, when I worked at the hospital for 11 years, there was 7 of those years where I specialized in obstetrics. So I would go to the mother-baby floor if mom had a traumatic delivery. She really had to have a decent dysfunction at that point. So if she couldn't get out of bed, if she couldn't stand up and she couldn't walk, then we would be called in. And I mean, by golly, to get a dang rolling walker to the mother-baby floor was like a mission. I had to explain myself to 7 layers of authority before we could get a rolling walker to a woman who just busted open her pubic bone during delivery. It was unreal, Nikki. Like, I don't think I'm that old, but to look back at the beginning of the obstetric care that I gave 10 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever it is ridiculous. Like these women prior to that, we're just like staying in the hospital longer. Yeah. Oh, you can't roll and get out of bed? Well, you can't be discharged today.
Right.
So you and your baby are going to have to stay. Or maybe the baby's fine and baby has to go home with dad and you need to stay here until you can walk because you're not safe to go home, but we're not going to help you walk. We're just going to keep you here. So all that to say, there are things we can do for mom immediately postpartum. So if she's having issues, you don't need to wait to call your pelvic health PT to come and help you with whatever's going on. Like we have done so many in-home assessments and before that 2-week postpartum period because she can't walk. Or because every time she stands up, it's not like you tinkle a little bit, like my entire bladder
empty your bladder.
Empties all over me and continues to empty as I walk. So yeah, the sooner the better. The only flip side to that is we always tell our moms, if it stresses you out to have an appointment on the calendar,
because I get that.
don't do it. Yeah.
Right. I do understand the psychology of that. Like, oh my gosh, I have something to do. Like
I have to be showered. I have to be already fed.
Totally.
No, if that's where you're at and you
especially if you don't have childcare.
Yeah. 100%.
Like it's hard. I mean, I remember thinking like a lot of my anxiety, Dr. Kat, came from like needing my baby to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Totally.
So that I could have a goddamn minute to myself.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling so stressed all the time about the baby waking up, like the baby falling asleep and then the baby waking up.
Yep. Right
so what am I going to get done in that? And half the time I'm just like sitting there brain dead because I don't want to have an appointment.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Right. I want to not have an appointment. I want to sit there brain dead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just decompress.
Like not think.
Yeah.
Like stare off into space.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we need to do when we're not like in that warfare. You need to like go outside and look at the tree.
Right.
And find a leaf that fascinates you.
Seriously. Yeah. And then I think to your point, having somebody who can come into your home and just give you direction. Mm-hmm. So if women can sustain one appointment with you, I feel like there's so much to be had because sometimes you just need somebody to tell you what the fuck to do.
Absolutely.
Even as a mom, like you need somebody coming and telling you like your man and your nanny, if they're a new nanny, especially like if you have one, if you're fortunate enough to have one, childcare, a grandparent or a sibling or somebody who's helping you in the home, whoever that person might be, they need direction and mom needs direction.
Absolutely.
Like here when but it's even hard because I remember like if you told me sit here and do a Kegel when you're brain dead and your baby's asleep, I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So exercise
I don't wanna
typically is not our focus early postpartum.
Good. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So I do all the doctor's lunches. We meet the OBs and the midwives in the areas and do everything we can to educate them about what we provide. A lot of them don't understand. So they'll say that exact question, when can I recommend you postpartum? And I say, as soon as she's ready for that appointment.
Yeah.
And they're like, before the sacred 6-week mark? Yes. I too understand that nothing goes in the vagina before 6 weeks.
Like,
and you know what? You're going in the vagina before I am because I don't clear you at the 6-week mark. Like you check the cervix, make sure it's closed, you do all your things, and then you tell me, yes, you can start internal pelvic floor. So before that, we're getting the neurological system calmed, which is massive.
Right.
We're getting the bony system to trend back towards a non-pregnant alignment. And we're gently engaging your musculature only to the extent to support you in being successful with what you're already going to do. You're already going to get out of bed multiple times a day. You're already going to change a diaper 10 times in the 12-hour period. And it's not just like, oh, Bob, let's change it. The baby's like,
exactly.
Like, these are not nothing tasks. And I know the baby's small, but like they get bigger fast.
They get big fast.
Yeah.
They do.
So your body's already doing all of these things. We just come in and make sure you are set up to do those things as well as you can.
Well, Dr. Kat, I'm really excited because next in part 2 of this conversation, we're going to talk about all the things we're going to do, primarily having sex after kids. So let's get that show on the road. I hope you guys come back for more. Part 2 is going to be super exciting, maybe a little bit scary. I was personally terrified, but it can be great. And we're going to talk about that. So tune in.
This podcast was brought to you by Sana Skin Studio. Be sure to use my code, TheNoGlow, for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com. More than a skin studio, Sana is a movement towards healthier skin and self-love. Thank you so much for listening to The Know. If you loved this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. Words are so powerful, and someone may need to hear what we covered today. And if you really loved this episode, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. Your comments are so important and valued, and they give other listeners insight on what to expect on The Know. You can connect with me personally via Instagram at Nikki Sap Spo and The Know with Nikki Spo. My hope for you today is that you are fearless in looking inward so that you can be your highest, most authentic self and go after the life of your dreams.